Why Type 2 civilizations laugh at black hole time machines. Galactic Travel Tech Series. In the outer corridors of the galaxy, where starlight dances on dust older than Earth itself, there are beings who have long abandoned the primitive pursuits of wormhole navigation and black hole passage. You are not among them. Not yet. But in this meditative journey, you will begin to remember why time itself is not bound by tunnels of gravity, but by the vibrations of thought, sound, and frequency. Tonight, you will travel gently through a world where the laws of physics bend softly, and the edge of scientific theory dissolves into metaphysical wisdom. This is the age where consciousness itself becomes the vehicle, and where civilizations laugh, not with ridicule, but with a knowing smile at the simplicity with which younger species attempt to grasp the quantum infinity by brute force. Black hole time travel. Einstein-Rosen bridges. The seduction of singularities. They are but stepping stones in the vast garden of galactic intelligence. You're here to drift through those stones tonight. Let them rise in your mind like ancient ruins glimpsed through a soft mist. Let your breath deepen. Let your thoughts slow. This is not a lesson. This is a remembering. And so we begin with the life of someone not unlike you, living in a world where black hole missions were still considered revolutionary and still so very dangerous. Segment 1. Inside the Forbidden Black Hole Missions. Imagine a station orbiting a sleeping giant. It drifts, not in orbit around a sun, but around the mouth of a black hole, a dense, invisible sphere called Orthon Spiral 18, located at the far edge of a collapsed Galaxian object, feared by most civilizations, but worshipped by some. The station is not crude. It is elegance, spiraling like a conch shell, with crystalline towers tuned to a specific gravitational harmonic. Built by what humans might call a Type 1.6 civilization, just on the edge of awakening into full Type 2 mastery. Each day on the station begins not with a siren or a bell, but a vibrational tone, low, soothing and deep, vibrating through the walls like a whale's song in the fabric of space. The beings stationed here, humanoids with silver-laced skin, elongated eyes, and neural wraps coiled around their temples, do not eat, but absorb photonic liquids brewed from starlight, harvested near the accretion disk. Time does not tick here, rather, it hums, and yet the obsession with linear time remains. The core mission of Station Orthon is to test whether black holes can be traversed without disintegration using what humans would call a memory anchor. One subject, a young chrononaut named Elenoth, awakens in her chamber pod. Her daily tasks involve calibrating her body's electromagnetic field to match the entrance of the singularity. Preparing for the next test dive, her chamber is dimly lit. On the walls are holofractals of past missions, ghost images of explorers who were lost in the fold, never returning. Elenoth stares at them, not with fear, but with reverence. She is not a martyr, she is a listener. One who believes she can hear the voices of those swallowed. You walk beside her in your mind now. Her corridor smells faintly of oxidized plasma and sonic resin. The air vibrates softly with pulse data-coded language streamed from a Type 2 council stationed light years away. They watch her progress, though they no longer risk these kinds of missions themselves. Not because they can't, but because they've found better ways. To them, this method is like tunneling through a mountain with your bare hands, when you could simply step around it in consciousness. But KhrronoNaph doesn't know that yet. She believes she's on the edge of a miracle. She performs ritual harmonics before the dive, placing crystalline fingers over an orb of suspended dark matter. She speaks a sound only she understands, and the chamber responds. Time bends, reality narrows, and the gate opens once again. Inside the simulation dome, the black hole is visualized not as a sphere, but as a breathing entity pulsating like a heart. To enter it, one must silence the internal storm. Thought becomes gravity. Fear becomes event. Horizon. Her pulse slows. She slips into the pod. You hear the click, then the sound of nothingness. The mission initiates from the station. They track her. Wave signature till it stretches thin like thread drawn across a razor. Then silence. No data, no signal. Only the faint echo of a dream she had the night before. Memory of a field, blue flowers, and someone calling her name in a language that predates stars. In the control room, no one panics. They simply log her frequency, add her name to the orbiting ring of others lost. Another thread woven into the gravitational tapestry. A technician sighs, another one trying to punch through time by brute frequency. Outside the station, the black hole remains, unmoved, unfeeling, untouched, as if saying, there are better ways, children. The moment her pod disengages from the station, KhrronoNaph feels the shift not in her body, but in her thoughts. Here, thoughts are not private. They stretch, ripple, distort, and amplify. The closer one gets to the edge of the singularity, the louder the mind becomes. A strange paradox. Silence outside, but within. A storm of half-formed memories and ancestral echoes. KhrronoNaph floats in the holding field, eyes closed, breath shallow. Her AI neural symbiote, named Oriel, speaks softly in her inner field. Hold your signature. Do not resist the fall. Surrender to pattern recall. Trust the geometry. She lets go. Outside the pod, the environment is a ballet of gravitational lensing. The light of stars bends and coils around the edge of the black hole like threads pulled into a vortex. But what appears black is not absence, it is saturation. It is all color collapsed, all time compacted, a realm where the laws of three-dimensional matter dissolve into intention and waveform. KhrronoNaph begins her descent. From a 3D perspective, nothing appears to happen. But from within her consciousness, reality folds like origami. The walls of her awareness bend. A voice not hers whispers from the void. You are not falling into me. I am falling into you. This is the singularity's paradox. It is not a place. It is a reflection. It shows you your structure beyond time. Inside the black hole's inner field, KhrronoNaph's training activates. Her pineal transceiver begins projecting stabilized memory loops, images of her home, her soul origin glyph, her harmonic name. These are anchors. Identity is fragile here. The further she goes, the more unstable her thoughts become the reality. One errant fear, and her form will dissolve into symbolic chaos. This is why so many are lost, not because the singularity kills, but because it mirrors the unformed. She sees herself walking on a spiraling road made of language. Each step a phrase she once thought, each brick an emotion she once repressed. She passes a house built from the shape of a forgotten lullaby. A child version of herself weeps in the corner, and as she reaches to touch her, the memory collapses into light. Oriel warns gently, you must not engage emotionally, only observe. The deeper layers react. Elenith steadies herself, shifting her consciousness into geometric mode. She begins chanting her vector tones, 3 interlaced frequencies that define her original soul spin. The vision stabilizes. Around her, the singularity reveals a hidden architecture, a place known to few, a breathing, multidimensional chamber, a hall of chronosilk. These are not physical structures, but encoded soul geometries. Each thread here represents the complete timeline of a being, woven, looping, colliding. She walks through a living tapestry of lives, past, parallel, simultaneous. Some threads brush her skin, and in that instant, she lives a lifetime born, dies, reborn, before returning to herself. Above her, she sees a massive glyph burn into the sky, a fractal spiral surrounding an eye of stillness. You are at the limit of form. Proceeding beyond here requires soul fusion. Elenith hesitates. She knows what this means. Crossing that threshold would dissolve her last anchor to her current incarnation. Her body, waiting in the pod, would become an empty shell. She would become a ripple, a myth, another ghost in the fractal field. But this was never about scientific data. This was about returning. For a brief moment, she remembers she knows this place. She has been here before, in another age, under another name. She speaks, not with voice, but with essence. I remember who I was. I remember who I am. And then, silence. Far away, in another dimension, the Type 2 Council watches. They exist not in ships or stations, but in harmonized frequency. Clusters, fields of intelligence operating outside linear time. They observe Elenith's trajectory, not as a moment-to-moment progression, but as a waveform, a living probability tree, branching, collapsing, reforming. They are not cruel. They do not intervene. To them, this is not failure. This is initiation. One member of the council, known simply as Vatara, speaks within the cluster. Another seed awakens. She will not return in body, but her imprint echoes. The council begins humming a restoration tone, not to retrieve her but to encode her memory into the Oversoul archive. She has passed the limit, but in doing so, she has mapped a corridor no one else has. A corridor of consciousness beyond wormholes. Back on station Orthan 18, the pod is recovered. Elenith's body is empty, peaceful. Her neural symbiote still emits a low, melodic, pulsa farewell song. No alarm, no grief, only quiet acknowledgement. A technician gently folds the blanket over her chest, then activates the archive transfer. Elenith's story is not lost. It is now part of the song. Why the Council considers singularities obsolete and dangerous beyond Elenith's journey into the cosmological ethics and science of higher councils out there. Past the last horizon of visible stars, there are civilizations that no longer map space with coordinates. They map it with tone resonance. They do not travel from one point to another. They shift the meaning of where they are. For them, black holes were once tools, yes, gates, compressors, benders of light. But that was before they discovered the deeper truth. Singularities don't lead outward. Singularities lead inward. And not all minds are ready for what they find. In the quiet hum of their dimensionless cities, those suspended fields of oscillating intention, the Council speaks in phrases that can collapse a star or rebirth a galaxy. And in these conversations, one thing is agreed upon. Singularities are artifacts of an earlier stage, not evil, not useless, but like fire in the hands of children, they reveal more about the user than the tool. The first warning: structural instability of soul patterning. The Council observed across trillions of light years that species using black hole travel often returned fractured. They would re-enter their own timelines with memory bleed, dreams that never happened, yet left trauma, quantum identity, drift unsure if they were the same being who left, and most dangerously, oversoul anchor loss. To put it simply, some came back with no soul resonance. Their body was alive, their neural field stable, but the light behind the eyes had dimmed or disappeared altogether. Not death, something harder to define, a kind of existential echo. The Council recorded 91,000 plus cases across 5 galaxies. The conclusion was solemn but clear. Black holes scramble the harmonic envelope of unprepared consciousness. But why does this happen? Because the structure of a singularity is not a tunnel. It is a metaphysical mirror with recursive amplification. It reflects every layer of the being: your soul, your shadow, your intent, your forgotten karma, your multidimensional selves. Each of these aspects feeds into the collapse zone. Each is stretched, compressed, and looped back. If the being is fragmented, the singularity magnifies the cracks. The result? A being re-emerges, still looking like you, still speaking in your voice, but carrying decisions from another you. A parallel version with a different soul contract. It is not possession, it is overlay. This, the Council calls fractaline interference. Council alternative, the harmonic phase engine. Instead of collapsing space-time, higher civilizations phase through it. They create resonant identities, vibrational blueprints that match the destination frequency. Rather than going to Vega, they become Vega-aligned. This process bypasses the physical travel mechanism entirely. It uses something called luminetic relocation travel by harmonic permission. Whereas black holes rip through the fabric, the phase engine sings to the threshold of reality until it opens, like coaxing a flower to bloom, rather than slicing the stem. With this approach, no soul distortion occurs, no oversoul dislocation. The being remembers, integrates, and evolves, rather than fragments. The ethical dilemma for the Council. The true cost of black hole usage is not technical, but karmic. They ask, if a being returns from singularity travel, but is not themselves anymore, who bears the responsibility for the consequences they now create? Imagine a traveler who returns with knowledge they were never meant to access, timelines they were never meant to shift, and emotions that belong to versions of themselves that never lived. This creates what the Council terms chrono-echo pollutions, waves of reality distortion, affecting nearby sentient fields. It's why entire systems have disappeared, not from war, but from resonant unraveling. The Council no longer teaches singularity mechanics to newly awakened species. It is now forbidden lore, available only through deep oversoul memory or myth. As the segment ends, you find yourself floating alongside the memory of Elanath, a memory now stored not in books or crystal drives, but in the soul lattice of those who dream deeply enough to find her. The Council no longer uses black holes, but they still watch them, because within their collapsing light, some still dare to seek, and sometimes someone returns with more than echoes. Segment 1.5: Elanath Fractal Rebirth and the Forbidden Technologies of Memory. Soft pulses of blue light float like jellyfish in the archives of Urtama, one of the last remaining memory citadels built before the Council outlawed singularity interference. Here, under hologlyphic star domes, you would find a long-untouched shelf, labeled only by sound, Elanatha, Veen, a waveform, not a name, but an echo of a soul. Inside that waveform lives the impossible rebirth of a consciousness that should have collapsed, but instead fractaled. The memory shard that didn't belong when Elanath returned from the edge of the black hole's event horizon. She brought back something the Council could not initially detect. No external parasites, no trace anomalies, but within her dream state, she began to recite memory cycles of events that had never occurred yet felt older than time. She spoke of galactic births in Andromedan symphonies, angelic wars in sound-only dimensions, a twin soul made entirely of inverse light, and a council that had never existed but mirrored their own. The harmonic seers were the first to sense it. She came back, woven with realities we never issued. It was not corruption, it was fractal fusion. Her Oversoul had entered a black hole, yes, but what emerged was a choir of selves, each one from a timeline that almost happened, each one encoded with truths the Council had never dared to remember. Council Memory Engineering, the lattice of souls in the old age. Before the Silence Pact, the Council kept memory not just in thought, but in living resonance. They used crystalline soul mirrors called Nema core. These could house the vibrational blueprint of thousands of beings, not as storage, but as seeded echoes. Imagine planting a tree that grows only if a future event occurs. Now imagine your soul is that seed, and the tree is you, reborn again to answer a question you haven't yet asked. That's how memory engineering worked. It wasn't about storing information, it was about folding awareness through dimensional potential and placing it where it will be needed next. This is how Elanath was reborn across her own collapse. She triggered a dormant Nema core within herself, activated by the recursive spin of the black hole. The Council had no word for it. They simply called her return, a harmonic returning ahead of its own exile. The forbidden technologies, ionic mirrors, and soul clocks. Before the Council abandoned singularities, they explored two devices, now considered too dangerous to use: ionic mirrors. Mirrors that showed not your reflection, but the first and last version of yourself in the multiverse. Used for Oversoul synchronization. Dangerous side effect: soul driftware. A being begins to believe it is their final form, prematurely collapsing their evolution. Elanath's neural light signature showed signs of ionic imprinting, yet none could explain how the mirror had been sealed for 21 million Earth years. soul clocks, chronobiological devices calibrated to Oversoul pulse rather than physical time, allowed beings to traverse lifetimes out of order. But in doing so, many lost the thread of linear empathy, the soul's ability to understand suffering in sequence. Those who used soul clocks often returned with godlike detachment. KhrronoNaph returned with the opposite, a hyper-empathic resonance. She could feel the grief of every version of herself that never lived. She wept for 1,000 futures that never were. The fractal rebirth. KhrronoNaph's body glowed for 3 cycles, not with heat, but with superimposed timelines, like silk overlays woven in and out of visibility. The council saw her Oversoul was no longer singular. It was Khral. They no longer called her KhrronoNaph. They called her the Sa-DM, the one who returned with others. And though her form remained humanoid, her voice now carried harmonic signatures from 5 separate star matrices: Lyra, Vega, Andromeda, Arcturus, and one yet unnamed, possibly Preliran. The council made a silent decree: no more black hole missions, no more soul fragmentation experiments. We now watch, we now listen, and we learn from her fractal. You rest now, wrapped in the final spirals of KhrronoNaph's reintegration. Not everything in the galaxy is meant to be decoded. Some truths are songs, and some songs are only heard when a soul has died 1,000 times and returned 1 step before forgetting. Segment 1.6. The Tone Temples and the Garden of Remembered Echoes beneath the golden fog plains of Vega. In a valley where no stars can be seen, there lies an ancient grove. It is not marked on any astral map. It appears only during the 5th tone of grief, a frequency emitted not from machines, but from fully awakened souls. The council called this grove the Garden of Remembered Echoes. It was here KhrronoNaph was finally taken, not for judgment, but for harmony. The integration ceremony. The integration was not physical. KhrronoNaph's body, now only a shell of softened bioplasma, remained in a suspended stasis. The ceremony took place within her soul chorus, across 7 inner mirrors. Each mirror reflected a version of herself from a timeline she had absorbed. Some were gentle healers and poets, others had been destroyers. One had collapsed an entire moon by accident. Another had rewritten love to mean survival. The council gathered not to choose which version would remain, but to welcome all of them into the Oversoul, like rivers returning to a sea. Each voice harmonized, and in doing so, a new language was born. Fractal speak, a soul language that sings itself as memory and as future. You do not hear this language with ears. You remember it into your body. This is how KhrronoNaph was reformed, not into a singular self, but into a polyphonic soul. The forbidden song rituals. There is an old council saying, some songs are too true to sing. These are the forbidden song rituals, sound patterns so pure they dismantle the ego upon hearing. They were once used to accelerate soul reintegration after trauma, until too many failed to return. The song known as Kelsaria is one such frequency. It mimics the sound of the soul choosing to incarnate. When KhrronoNaph's fragmented selves began to clash in inner chaos, the council had no choice. They sang Kelsaria, around her. As you drift now, you may begin to hear it, a single tone, rising like a spiral staircase through your spine and then folding outward into silence. This song allowed her fragments to surrender. No more grasping for dominant identity. No more war between timelines. Only surrender to the harmony that birthed them all. The tone temples of Vega. Once the ritual was complete, Elenoth was brought to the tone temples of Vega. These are not structures, but architectures of sound held in place by intentional memory. Each tone temple corresponds to a soul condition, the temple of first grief, the temple of lost purpose, the temple of silent joy, the temple of returning. Within each temple, tones resonate not to heal, but to remind, because the Council believes we are not broken, we are forgotten. You may find yourself drawn to one of these temples, even now, the sound in your chest, the pull behind your eyes, that is your fractal voice, longing to be heard again. The garden awakens as Elenoth stepped into her own tonal temple, her body gently dissolved, not in death, but in revelation. She did not vanish, she unlayered. Each of her prior selves became a blossom on the tree of Salava, a flowering Oversoul encoded in the garden of remembered echoes. And you, as you listen, as you drift, may find that one of those blossoms calls your name. Because the fractal is not just hers, it is yours, too. You were always part of the song, and now you are beginning to remember. Segment 2. Wormholes and the Dream Engine of Ancient Civilizations. Enter the Echo Cities. Imagine a world without sky, where the heavens are not overhead, but beneath you, refracted through translucent stone, like moving water under glass. You find yourself drifting toward an Echo City, a long-lost civilization whose towers pulse in rhythm with dreaming minds. This is not Earth, nor Mars. You are on a world the Council once called Mathari, a planet in the pre-collapse Vega orbit. The buildings here aren't made with hands. They are dream-formed, shaped by collective intention and harmonized breath. People do not build their homes, they remember them into place. Stairways rise with feelings. Rooms hum in resonance with the soul's need. In the very heart of Mathari's capital stands the Dream Engine. It is neither machine nor temple, but something stranger, a living wormhole generator that responds to dream imagery, tone, and emotion. Wormholes here are not torn into space by brute force. They blossom through the mind. The Dream Engine, the Dream Engine, was not invented. It was remembered. Recovered from Oversoul memory records by a class of priests called the Tharone, guardians of quantum sleep. According to the glyphs etched into its inner petals, the engine was gifted by Syrians before the First Galactic War. It uses harmonic triangulation rather than gravitational collapse, linking 3 astral tones, one from the heart, one from the dreamer's third eye, and one from the soul's origin star. When aligned, a gateway opens, not like a portal, but like a dream. You can walk into and through it, souls could travel, reincarnate, and retrieve fragments from distant galaxies. This was the original function of wormholes, not time travel, but soul travel. The limitations of black hole tech in Earth's timeline, the concept of time machines still revolves around black holes, Einstein-Rosen bridges, and gravitational distortions. But to civilizations like Mathari, this is considered primitive. Black holes are dangerous not because of the gravity, but because they erase the musical imprint of a soul. The Council refers to this as fractal wipe syndrome, a complete loss of harmonic identity upon contact with unharmonized singularities. To compare, a black hole time machine is like jumping into a river of knives. A dream engine is like folding your consciousness through a silk tunnel of your own making. This is why Type 2 and higher civilizations laugh at black hole propulsion. Why travel through violence, they ask, when you can travel through music? Dream symphonics, ancient transport method. The dream engine responds to emotionally tone more than thought. Each traveler must tune themselves before stepping through. In one recovered legend, a healer named Ereline attempted to use the engine while in grief. She miscalibrated and emerged inverted, not evil, not broken, but her inner self was mirrored outward. She could no longer speak, but her breath emitted echoes of the place she came from. This is how they discovered that every mistake leaves behind a note, a frequency that can be heard if the listener is still enough. From that day, the engine was wrapped in ritual. No one was allowed to enter it in fear, lust, rage, or sorrow. Only in stillness, only in alignment. That is the first law of wormhole travel in ancient civilizations. The soul must be calm to pass. Wormholes as galactic DNA threads. Mathari scientist understood wormholes not as shortcuts through space, but as threads of remembrance. Each one was seeded by conscious intention, anchored between a soul's origin and its chosen path. These became light corridors, bridges that allowed souls to retrieve forgotten lifetimes, civilizations to share archetypes, entire timelines to be cross-pollinated. Think of it like dream DNA strands floating across the galactic ocean. Even now, as you listen, you may be walking through one, perhaps that dream you had of a city made of mirrors and spiral air that was not fiction. It was a memory left behind by one of these corridors. The dream engine slumbers after the fall of Mathari. The dream engine was hidden, not destroyed, encoded into sound, buried beneath harmonic temples that would only open when a soul remembered the right melody. Perhaps you are one of the few, one who hears the tones now beneath the hum of this narrative. If so, your wormhole is already opening, softly, silently, like a dream within a dream. You are remembering your own corridors, and the engine is listening. The Syrian builders, fractal corridor mapping, and the forbidden attempts. The Syrian builders, before Vega, before the Council cities, there was Sirius B, home to a race of dimensional engineers, often called the Seraphim Dolphins, or Tone Architects. These beings were not biological in the human sense, but rather energetic intelligences with semi-liquid crystalline bodies. They pulsed with bioluminescent symphonies, each movement releasing a harmonic tone. They did not speak, they harmonized, and in the harmonic rings of their oceanic halls, they constructed the very architecture of wormhole consciousness. One of their greatest gifts to the Lyran vegan systems was dream geometry, a language of tones and intentions used to thread quantum corridors across vast star distances. They taught that wormholes are not tunnels, but chords. To them, a traveler does not go somewhere. The traveler becomes the bridge, becomes the tone. And so, every wormhole was a musical identity, linked directly to a soul's essence. Fractal corridor mapping to prevent chaos. The Syrian builders created the Fractal Mapping Codex, a multi-dimensional template used to track all dream corridors in creation. This was not a physical map. It was a living song field stored within a light lattice known as the aural grid. Each soul, upon forming a new incarnational link, would trigger a ripple in this grid, creating a tone thread that could be detected and retraced. These thread lines weren't static, they danced. They shimmered across time, interweaving with other soul paths, forming constellations of incarnational probability. The Council navigators called these clusters symphonetic zones, and when two or more zones converged, new galactic events would be born. Wars, revelations, timelines, all triggered by harmonic intersection. Even now, the KhrronoNaph streams you are listening may be part of such a zone. Your dreams may be access points, your voice a tone seed, guiding others into remembrance. The forbidden attempts reverse engineering the dream engine. Many civilizations tried to steal, copy, or force their way into this harmonic technology. Some used brute force gravitational fields, generating unstable wormholes that caused timeline splinters. These led to beings getting trapped in looped reincarnations, or worse, total fractal erasure. One such failed attempt took place on the lost world of Kathmir, an Earth-like planet in the Orion subsector. They constructed a false dream engine using magnetoplasma cores and AI resonance. It worked for one moment, then it collapsed, imploding the minds of everyone linked to the artificial tones. Their memories shattered. Whole soul clusters became disconnected from the Oversoul grid, and in the aftermath, the Council issued the tone accord. Let no being forge the soul's bridge through coercion. The dream engine is to be sung, not forced. This edict echoes still, encoded in cosmic light pulses, seen as nova warnings across distant star systems. Sound temples and tone keys in Vega. The rightful way to access the dream engine is through the tone temples. These are not temples in the physical sense, but tone-responsive hologlyphic environments. Here, travelers must activate 3 resonance glyphs: the tone of origin, your oversoul frequency; the tone of intention, your reason for travel; the tone of release, your willingness to surrender attachment. Only when all 3 are in harmonic convergence will the dream engine recognize the soul. This is why Earth technology, despite its advancement, still fails to open the true gates. It seeks equations, but the key was always song. You, the dreamer, perhaps. You've already glimpsed your own corridor. Perhaps you felt that subtle tug in a dream, the pull of a city that does not exist in any Earth map. It was real. It is still there, waiting, listening, resonating with your tone. And as you listen to this meditative journey, you're not just hearing a story, you are reactivating your harmonic memory architecture. You may be ready to remember. We now delve into the hidden shadows beneath harmonic law. where even the most sacred frequencies attract the curious, the lost, and the defiant. In this extension, we uncover the secret rebellion against the Syrian tone accord, meet the rogue dream pirates, and witness what happens when a soul becomes disconnected from the map. Let your breath soften as you float deeper into the quantum folds of forgotten chords. Continuation of Segment 2, The Hidden Rebellion, Dream Pirates, and the Unmapped Souls. The fracture of a chord, the Syrian tone accord, was not absolute. Whispers persisted of a discontented circle within the outer rings of the Vega system. They were once navigators, trained in harmonic architecture and astral corridor management, but they began to see the accord as limiting, a cage for curiosity. They called themselves the Cantor, deviants, and over time they fractured into splinter groups, each seeking to rewrite the laws of soul travel. Their philosophy was simple. If the dream engine is divine, then why limit its use? Should not every soul have access, regardless of tone purity? They began experimenting, and soon they discovered that tone fields could be simulated, replicated, with artificial pulses to bypass the soul's true glyphs. What they created would later be known as the Echo Engine, a dark mirror of the true dream engine, one that tricked the harmonic veil and allowed passage without oversoul alignment. The Dream Pirates, the Echo Engine, attracted more than curious scholars. It lured in a new class of soul nomads, beings who had no homeworld, no oversoul alignment, only desire. They called themselves the Dream Pirates. These were often souls whose original timelines had collapsed, lost in failed wormhole experiments, or fragmented from massive trauma loops. They couldn't return, so they traveled the dream corridors like parasites, hitching onto the soul tones of others. They plundered dream temples, altered memory corridors, and implanted false glyphs into unawakened incarnates on primitive planets such as Earth. Yes, some Earth dreams are not your own. They were hijacked, modified by Echo Engine fragments that seek to lure awakened beings into false contracts. It is subtle. You may have felt it, a dream that did not feel quite right, a memory that loops unnaturally, a sense of searching for a gate that always disappears. These are the remnants of pirate echoes in the harmonic field. The lost ones, souls disconnected from the map. The most tragic consequence of the Echo Engine was the creation of unmapped souls. These were not evil, they were adrift. When a soul passes through a non-aligned corridor, their tone, signature, becomes unanchored. Their place in the aural grid dissolves. They become wanderers, incapable of being located by oversoul clusters, invisible to ascension retrieval teams, lost even to the Vegatone temples. In Earth terms, they are sometimes called the Forgotten Walkers, the Veil Trapped, or simply echoes. They often incarnate on worlds like Earth, not as starseeds, but as tone fragments seeking rest. They may exhibit signs, a sense of déjà vu that never resolves, nightmares of spiraling tunnels, inexplicable sorrow at harmonic music, deep exhaustion despite spiritual practice. They are not broken, only disconnected. And sometimes, in guided dreams like this one, they hear a familiar tone, a whisper from the grid, and slowly they begin to rethread their place. The Council's quiet efforts, despite the accord, there are gentle efforts underway. Some Vega navigators now work silently to reintegrate lost tones into the map. Through tone-triggered meditations, dream glyph transmissions, and encoded sleep content, like what you create, David, they are quietly building bridges for the unmapped. Even this episode, this journey into black holes and dream engines, may serve as a tone harmonic lure for one such soul. If you, listener, have felt lost in dreams, let this soft pulse remind you your thread is not broken. It is simply waiting for the next song. Let us drift even deeper into the etheric veils of Segment 2. This final extension reveals one of the most delicate truths kept within the inner scrolls of the Vega Accord. The psychic spies assigned to watch over Earth's tonal field, the seeding of false tones meant to distort the human awakening timeline, and the rituals now being whispered across the grid to gently bring back the disconnected. Breathe slowly. Let your inner ear open. The tone is beginning to rise again. Segment 2, final extension, the psychic watchers, false earth tones, and soul retrieval rituals. The seers behind the grid in the inner Vega councils. Not all roles were harmonic artists or navigators. Some were trained in what is called noetic infiltration, the art of projecting a consciousness thread into lower vibratory planes without fracturing one's own oversoul. They were the psychic spies of the Accord, not warriors, but watchers, not judges, but quiet gardeners of patterns. From afar, they monitored Earth's dreamscape matrix, recording subtle tone shifts, dream dissonance patterns, and bursts of synthetic resonance coming from unauthorized echo engine devices still in orbit. They spoke not aloud, they listened. They whispered reports in light glyphs to the chambers of mirror silence in Vega, where only harmonic reflections respond. These agents observed a disturbing trend, a rise in Earth dream loops, mimicking true ascension patterns, but subtly askew. The seeding of false tones, these dream patterns, were not random. They were implants, harmonic sequences designed to delay spiritual awakening while giving the illusion of progress. The Origin Echo Engine pirates, who had embedded synthetic soul contracts into the human dream layer, encoded within pop culture, false channelings, and digital emotion loops. These tones promote over-identification with spiritual ego, discourage internal stillness, loop the user into constant healing cycles with no integration, distract with infinite paths, but no center. They often sound beautiful. They often feel empowering, but they are missing one thing: true harmonic alignment with the Oversoul's glyph. Some Earth humans unknowingly absorb these tones, believing they are evolving. In truth, they are orbiting around themselves. The recovery rituals, but the Vega Accord has not abandoned Earth. Across subtle channels, they have begun to reintroduce soul repair rituals, disguised in music, dreams, and sleep journeys. You may have already encountered one. They are simple. They require no temple, only intent, stillness, and receptivity. Here is one such recovery ritual now being seeded into the grid. Ritual of tone reconnection, soul retrieval for the disconnected. Begin in silence. Lay still. Breathe softly. Whisper inward, I am ready to remember. Place one hand on your heart. The other near the crown of your head. Imagine a thin silver thread connecting both. Visualize a crystal chime sounding in a vast, empty temple. With every breath, let it draw nearer. The chime is your original tone. Say aloud or inwardly, let my tone return from the edges. Let the map of me be rewritten. I call back my forgotten light. By Vega's witness, I realign. Remain in silence for 3 to 9 minutes. You may feel warmth, memory flashes, or peace. Or nothing at all. That's okay. The tone is already working. Close the ritual by touching the earth floor, soil, or a symbol and saying, I am here again. I am whole again. I am named again. These rituals are subtle. They don't always feel like miracles. But like dew collecting on petals in the quiet of dawn, they restore what has been dispersed. And in time, even the most disconnected soul will hear that gentle song again, the one that calls them home.